Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme. I am the Phantom Menace, he who remains, the master of the deceptive arts, and I return to you once more again as the voice of the vasectomites. Today, let me start by asking you a personal and quite familiar question on this platform, and I'm going to repeat it here once again. And I want you to think about it and meditate on it as we go through today's discussion. And that question is, do you want to be a father? Now think about this. Think about this. If you already have kids, do you want more kids? Do you want another child? And if you don't have kids, do you want to have them? Do you want the next 20 years of your life to be spent raising a child with a counterpart? Do you want to be a parent? Do you want to raise a child from 0 to 21? Is it your wish and desire to be a protector and a provider? Do you want to protect and provide? If your answer is yes, I want to be a father, then sadly I cannot help you. There's nothing I can do, right? You can go ahead and move along. Go watch something else, right? I'm sure you have plenty of things to do, right? Really, I cannot help you. And I'm not saying this to be dismissive. I'm just being quite frank as the Bachelor Supreme, the Ancient One, he who remains. That's who I am. I'm not the man who has kids and a wife and bills, right? This is a platform for other people. Even if I wanted to help you, even if I really did want to help you, honestly, I have no experience and no knowledge or perspective in that area of life. I've never had kids and I really don't want them, right? Go ahead and move on. It was good to know you. Thank you for coming. Have a nice day. However, if your response is like mine, and it is a resounding and absolute and total no, then you, my friend, have come to the right place. There will be no folding of towels over here. And over here, we do not argue over teaspoons. No. Chores, along with taking short or long naps, are optional. And that option is always open. You are now in the sanctum of solitude and at the citadel at the end of time. Here, we have steak for breakfast and we work out for dinner. The news compromises mostly of 24-hour sports highlights and travel weather forecast. You are in the heart and soul of the bachelor life. And if the idea of having children, a wife, a family, if these things give you discomfort, they cause you anxiety, worry, and even induce a sense of fear for the future, then it's very possible that you are suffering from paternal tocophobia, or what is otherwise known as male tocophobia. That's what today's topic is about. It is the fear of having children, right? This is defined, tocophobia is defined in some circles, right? In some circles, not all, as the intense and irrational fear of childbirth. Intense, yes, but irrational. Irrational, there I don't agree. But yes, the intense and irrational fear of childbirth. Now, if you don't want to be a father, this could very well be you. You could be suffering from tocophobia and not even know it. This is a legitimate thing, not irrational. Now, granted, tocophobia is the fear of childbirth, and thereby it is primarily a fear logically that affects the counterpart, women and the counterpart, particularly women who are already pregnant and those that are expecting to become so imminently, right? Yes, I will yield to the fact that women, they do get the most and the worst parts of this childbirth situation, from carrying the child for many, many months, and then the birth itself, which quite frankly is a traumatic experience. Again, I encourage every man to go online and just research childbirth live, like a real childbirth, not like a simulation, and then just watch what continues um, to before your eyes, as you go through this intense video. It's gonna blow you away. It's gonna blow you away, right? While this is true, while the fear of childbirth is to be expected in women, right? And in fact, the counterpart, this doesn't mean that there is no fallout or there are no consequences or ramifications of insemination and pregnancy to a counterpart for a knee bender. And that's what you will be. Now, you could be a bachelor, good and strong, faithful and true to the bachelor life in every aspect. But as soon as you get that counterpart pregnant, you will be made to bend that knee. Of that, I absolutely guarantee you. I absolutely guarantee you, my friend. I'm not here to come and tell you things that will not happen. What I'm telling you is going to happen. Now, I'm not here to tell you if you're going to be rich or if you're going to be poor. That is undetermined. People become rich and poor all the time. Success can only be measured by outcomes. But as for getting somebody pregnant and inseminated, this I am absolutely sure about. I know you're going to do this. Not only that, I know it's going to ruin your life. The life that you know as a bachelor will be but a dream in the distance. You look at this young man here in the picture. There's an irony in this picture perhaps that you might not see. And the longer I look at this picture, I see that irony unfolding. What you're seeing here is a former bachelor. Young man, still got a full head of hair, still got all his teeth. He's not wearing glasses, he's still got his eyesight. That hair, that's his natural hair color. He didn't dye that hair, right? Older guys will have hair that thick, that black, and it'll be dyed or it'll be implants. He didn't dye that hair. That's his real natural hair color. You can see how perfectly matched it is with these eyebrows, right? These are just the details that I'm seeing. Look at the size of that t-shirt. You see that t-shirt? That's the normal size of t-shirts that he's used to wearing. And in a few years' time, he's going to gain so much weight, right? Especially around that neck. Look at that tremendous jawline around that neck. He's going to have that double chin, right? He's going to end up growing a tremendously long beard, perhaps. But if he shaves, he's going to have nothing but a double chin. And he's going to be maybe double or triple the size that he is now. And he's still going to insist on wearing the same size t-shirt. Either that or he won't be able to find t-shirts his size. He's just going to buy the biggest one they have and wear it as it is. It's going to be very uncomfortable. But this is the image of a man who has no idea that his life is about to get flipped upside down. He knows that there's something about to happen. There's a storm brewing, but he really doesn't understand the full capacity of it. And in about 20 years, 19 years, he's going to want to return back to this image of himself. He's going to want to go back to the bachelor life. Now, he may very well hit the gym and that kind of situation, but, he's going to have to dye his hair and all kinds of things. Now, he could get back into shape, but he'll never return to his pre-bachelor life, right? He'll never return to who he was. They're going to make him bend that knee, right? And this is you. Some of you are just before this. Some of you are long after this. But this is you. This is a young man who 2, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, had everything going for him. And all he did was he got somebody pregnant and inseminated. And you look at that smile, that's not a smile, that's a grin. That's a grin. All right? There's a 99% chance, right, that you're going to get somebody pregnant and that you're going to get the wrong counterpart inseminated and pregnant. And there are real consequences of raising a child with or without the mother. This is what you need to remember, right? If you get it wrong and you're with the wrong counterpart, that's a 20-year sentence to child support and lawyer fees. That's a 20-year sentence of child support and lawyer fees. If you do get it right, it's probably going to mean legal matrimony and then later the dark dimension. And then soon you get the full power of the darkness, the full power of the dark dimension. Divorce, alimony, child support, lawyer fees, homelessness, loss of retirement, loss of savings, loss of assets, loss of time, loss of health, mental health. You lose yourself. You lose yourself in the dark dimension. Really, everything that you know that is you goes. And then you're left where? Back to the bachelor life. But this time, you are not this young man here. You don't have the energy of 23, 24, 25-year-old bachelors. You are in your 40s. It's been 20 years. You're now in your 40s, and your next highlight of life is going to be 50 years old. At best, you're looking at 15 good years of work. And hopefully it works out. For some, this risk is worth the benefit. And I'm really not sure what the benefit is. Perhaps one day I need to research what is the purpose of having children. I understand what the purpose of intimacy is. The purpose of intimacy is insemination, right? And then what is the purpose of having children? Some people would say it's to have a family until you get divorced, right? But some people think the risk is worth it. But for others, like myself, it induces a risk-averse reaction, what they call the flight or fight response, right? And when you get this risk-averse reaction, you don't see the benefits that the other people do, that the knee benders do, because we're standing on our feet. So we're just looking at this thing at eye level. They're on their knees. They see whatever they see, and who can say what's down there, right? I cannot say. But when you look at the situation from a vasectomite or a bachelor, the books are not balancing. These numbers don't add up. And in truth, the end truly doesn't justify the means. This is where I've landed, where, of all the experience that I've had in life with and without the counterpart, I really find that the end, what you get in the end, doesn't justify what you put in. The means, the resources, the skills, the knowledge, your efficacy, your work, right? All of that is not justified by what you get in the end, right? But consider with me for a moment, just a brief moment, the fact that even if you have this fear, which I think is a legitimate one, what can you actually do about it? I mean, let's say you have tocophobia, right? This is what we're talking about, tocophobia, right? The fear of childbirth, the fear of having children. Even if you have this as a man, what really can you do about it? Right? Having a fear that you cannot overcome, that you cannot control, that you cannot defeat is going to drive you crazy. Perhaps it might even make you obsessive, right? You won't be able to stop thinking about it. I know I did, because I too suffered from tocophobia, right? And I can relate, because I didn't want to be this guy. I've been this young man in great, tremendous shape, but without the baby and the counterpart. Yes, I had a counterpart, and in that situation, I did put on weight, but then I quickly lost that weight, after it all ended. But yeah, you do put on weight in these situations, man. You're always just going out to eat. Have you noticed that? That's all you do when you're with the counterpart. You just go somewhere and eat, and go somewhere and eat, and go somewhere. These people are obsessed with food and consumption. That's what it's really about. It's just consume, consume, consume. You know? I asked when we started this video if you wanted to be a father. And this is an ironic question, because your answer, quite frankly, is irrelevant and inconsequential. In this area of life, it really is. Because the reality of that answer is that you are going to be a father. Not maybe, not but, not if. You are. It is a definite, guaranteed outcome. Then your fears of tocophobia will be fully realized, and you will see what there actually is to be feared. If there's anything at all, you will find out, and you'll come and tell us. You'll tell us if it's worth the investment in time, right? I'd love nothing more than to have a conversation with this young man a year before this photo was taken, right? The young man that you're seeing on your screen. I'd love nothing more than to have a conversation with him the year before and see what his take on having children is. And then I'd love nothing more than to have the same conversation with him in 20 years' time and just have like a compare and contrast situation, just to see like, how did this all work out for you, right? Did it play out the way you thought it did? Was it really worth it, right? Because I don't think so. I don't think so. What you can do, on the other hand, bear with me now. Maybe you haven't heard this before. This might be a new concept. I'm just gonna throw it out there. You could freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. You could freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. When we go through today's edification, right, which is actually a combination of two things. There's information um, that I received through one particular search engine and another particular search engine. On the one, in fact, many search engines, they don't really discuss paternal tocophobia, right? They discuss tocophobia from a maternal point of view, which is logical, right? But paternal tocophobia is not well discussed. So I had to combine information from two really separate pieces of, or rather, two separate search engines, but the information is closely related. However, I did have to leave out some excerpts that really aren't going to be helpful. Um, you know, things like how to prepare for childbirth, that kind of thing. So, we're not gonna be giving birth. So, that's not gonna be really helpful to our conversation today. But there is an aspect there of the mentality of tocophobia as a phobia, right? As a psychological fear, right? And what you'll see along with me is that there is no cure for tocophobia. If you have a fear of having kids, even after the kids are born, you'll still be afraid to have another one. And you'll still be concerned that you could get another counterpart pregnant. There is no cure known for tocophobia except the one that I've just given now, right? This here is the cure for tocophobia. And that cure is freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. If tocophobia is the fear of having kids, then the cure is the inability to have those kids. The cure is to protect yourself. The cure to tocophobia is a vasectomy, to freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. This is the cure. This is the cure right here. And I have invented it. And I'm taking that credit right now to say that I, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, have come up with a logical, medically sound, psychologically provable cure for tocophobia, for paternal tocophobia, which is the fear of childbirth, the fear of having children. If paternal tocophobia is the fear of having children, then the cure has to be the ability to not have children. Thereby, freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy is a medically sound cure for tocophobia. And I'm going to go take credit for it right now. I'm going to take credit for it before somebody else does. Right? Now, I'm not 100% sure if anybody's actually taking credit for curing tocophobia in men before. So I may very well be plagiarizing someone. And if I am, I will gladly take my statement back. I don't want to get sued, you know what I mean? But as far as I know, no, there is nobody who has come forth with a viable and sound cure for male tocophobia before. So I'm taking the credit, right? The cure for male paternal tocophobia has to be to freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. Then you don't have to worry about the consequences, the fallout, the ramifications of childbirth. And this is what I said ironically, is that today's edification doesn't provide a solution for male tocophobia, not in any real and tangible way, but I have. So here it is, today's article. Tocophobia, fear of childbirth. This was last reviewed, I believe it is the 4th of December 2022. I'm just going to read the days like that, day, month, year. But in some places, it may very well be the 12th of April, but I'm not entertaining that. 4th December 2022, and it comes from our friends over at my.clevelandclinic.org. Please go over to Cleveland Clinic for reliable information. They're very, very good if you want to do some meaningful research. I just happened to land on them ironically and find the information useful, and I hope you do too. It reads, tocophobia is an extreme fear of childbirth. I would agree with the extreme. The condition causes some women to take excessive measures to avoid getting pregnant. So yes, so this is directed towards women. The second part is going to be directed a little bit towards men, but it is important, I believe, information to have, and you will see why shortly. But yes, this condition causes some women and men to take excessive measures to avoid getting pregnant. I am one of those men. I am saying freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. Those who do become pregnant may dread each week of pregnancy instead of enjoying it. Sure, I guess. But I can imagine from a male point of view, I mean, I'm sure that for the counterpart, it's extremely stressful. But I can imagine trying to prepare for this eventuality and realizing that, it's 20 years in the making. It's 9 months of pregnancy, 18 years of childcare, and maybe even more if the child goes to university. I mean, it's 20 solid years, you know. So I can understand how each day would be dreadful, With therapy and extra support, this condition can be overcome right there. The solution that they offer is therapy and extra support. I'm offering freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. I would argue you're probably going to spend just as much money on therapy as you would freezing your sperm and getting a vasectomy. But therapy is not going to give you the change that you want. Remember, it's not change unless it's permanent. So, therapy might buy you some time, but if it's not permanent, it's not change. So, what is tocophobia? Tocophobia is an extreme fear of childbirth. This condition primarily affects females, but a small number of males also experience it. I'm in that small number of males. Actually, I would say it's a large number of males that experience tocophobia. I don't think that men really talk about this enough. I think that what a lot of men don't want to say is that what they just want is the intimacy. They don't want the pregnancy, they don't want the commitment, they don't want the long-term, drawn-out child raising. And they really didn't expect to have to spend the rest of their lives with this counterpart, right? There's a statistic that says over 45% of pregnancies really are unplanned, which doesn't mean that the other 55 were also wanted. It just tells you that there's a section of men, or rather a section of society, up to 45% of society, whose pregnancies or whose child is not planned. 99% of counterparts are on child support. Are on, not child support, I beg your pardon, birth control. 99% of counterparts are on birth control. So from their side of view, it's very rare where a child is unplanned or accidental. That 45% is not from the counterpart. That 45% is the knee benders. So if there's two parents in making a child, and we are at half of them know and plan the child, and the other half don't, it just tells you that it's the counterpart planning the kid, and it's the knee benders that end up with the bill. So I would say a lot of men experience tocophobia, but it's just not talked about, right? It's just really not discussed at all in male spaces. Tocophobia is a specific phobia that causes fear of a particular situations. There are two types of tocophobia. Primary tocophobia, which is the first one, occurs in people who've never been pregnant. So this is us. We suffer from primary tocophobia, right? So of course it also affects women and counterparts, but we've never been pregnant, so paternal tocophobia should fall into the first criteria, which is primary tocophobia. Secondary tocophobia develops after traumatic event during pregnancy or labor. These may include difficult labor or stillbirths, which are both very unfortunate. So secondary tocophobia happens with somebody who's actually had experience being pregnant and had difficulty with that pregnancy or a difficult outcome with that pregnancy. So we would fall in the first category of primary tocophobia. Remember, this is something that primarily affects women because men, you're not going to get pregnant and you're not going to give birth. So for women, it's an absolutely logical fear. For men, they would describe it as irrational. I would say it's legitimate. And I would say that more men suffer from this than what is actually recorded. So, what are phobias? It's natural to fear things that feel dangerous and uncomfortable. Yes, it is. For many people, this includes pregnancy and childbirth. Yes, it does. But these thoughts rarely disrupt daily activities. This is true. So while you might have a phobia of something, generally it's something that hasn't, or maybe it's generally something that is imagined, right? I won't say something that hasn't happened, but it's something that is imagined. So it could be something that happened in the past and you are reimagining it by remembering. Or it could be something that you are scared that will happen, thereby you are imagining it will happen to you in the future or sometime, or that there's a possibility of it happening, right? But it doesn't really disrupt your daily activities. So it may, for some people, it may, extreme phobias may. But if you have like a fear of spiders, you'll still go to work. Do you know what I mean? I could have a tocophobia, which I did for many, many years until I cured it by myself by getting a vasectomy and freezing my sperm. But it did not prevent me from going out, from dating, from going to work and traveling and living my life. So this is very true. Phobias cause intense fear that makes you go out of your way to avoid certain situations. This is true. So if you have a phobia of something, you want to prevent that thing from happening, right? Tocophobia prevention is to freeze your sperm and then go ahead and get that vasectomy. You may experience irrational thoughts and behaviors that are difficult to control. Yes, in some cases, phobias get in the way of achieving life goals, like having children or expanding your family. When they say you may experience irrational thoughts and behaviors, there are things that I would never have done were it not for the fear of getting a counterpart pregnant. So, for instance, there were relationships I would have never engaged in. Or if I did engage in those relationships, I would have ended them very quickly for their inconvenience, their cost, their difficulty. But the fear that I would get somebody pregnant, not just the counterpart that you're with, but just anybody, prevented me, quite frankly, from infidelity and that kind of thing. Right? This is not to imply that I've been faithful to people. I've never been faithful to anyone in my life. Right? I've never been faithful not to a single counterpart. Never, ever, not a day, even as a child. Even as a child. right? It's the rule of two. There's never one, there's always two. But that being said, there were many situations where the opportunity would present itself and I would just simply say no for the fear of getting that particular person inseminated. So there's a situation where you kind of make a choice and you say, well, what if I get this person inseminated and pregnant? Is this the choice I'm making over getting that person inseminated and pregnant? And this for me is something, a calculation that I did all the time. It's not something that my thinking never ended just at, oh, the counterpart is attractive, this is good enough. That was never good enough. It was really a matter of, especially after graduating university and starting my career. And I was grateful to have my career because I realized that then I had something really that I valued that I could lose, right? And that induced a level of stability in me at a very young age where I would have otherwise been inclined to be reckless. And one of the things that I didn't want to be reckless about was reproduction. So it really, the fear of getting somebody pregnant worked in one way in that it restricted my actions, my activities, my movements, but it benefited me in another way in that it made me, quite frankly, stable, right? Stable and grateful for that stability, right? So, yeah, you do go out of your way to avoid certain situations. Continues, so you may experience irrational thoughts and behaviors that are difficult to control. In some cases, phobias get in the way of achieving life's goals, like having children and expanding your family. Um, Irrational thoughts and behaviors that are difficult to control. Irrational thoughts, perhaps. Behaviors, not so much. Myself, I'm able to control myself, and I preach self control, and I teach self control, and I motivate self control, and I advance self control. In any form of leadership that I'm in, the first thing that I'm going to try and instill in people is a sense of self control, right? But if you have a phobia that makes you not be able to control yourself, that's a problem for a bachelor. But tocophobia induced in me a tremendous amount of self control and discipline. I absolutely did not want to get anybody pregnant under any circumstances, right? And this had a lot to do with my work, with my life, and with where I thought I would be in a few years, right? And I'm glad to say that in some areas I've surpassed my own expectations, but in other areas, not so much. And then there are areas where I did really, really, really well and had to undo everything and start everything from scratch. Life is funny in that way, right? There were things that I thought I really had them established and in place, and then return to them and realize that the structure that I built, quite frankly, belonged to a world that no longer existed. Let's answer the question, do I have tocophobia? Yes, I do. Many people feel anxious about childbirth. I'm one of those. Tocophobia causes some women and men to avoid getting pregnant. Women who become pregnant might not feel excited about it and try to hide their growing baby. Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. You know, you've always heard, in fact, I think that most women initially might try to hide the pregnancy. Not all. Some will announce it right off the bat, you know. While it's still a fetus, they'll just tell everybody what it is. But I think a lot of women, for the first few weeks, maybe month or so, try to come to terms with the reality for themselves before they share the news with other people. Now, this may just be a patient strategy, or it may also be an indication of tocophobia, right? What do they call it? They call it secondary tocophobia. So this may very well be someone who's pregnant and has a fear that something is going to happen. Or maybe just the fear of the consequences of that pregnancy, the entire changing of your life forever. It continues to say women who become pregnant might not feel excited about it and try to hide their growing baby. There's no reason to feel embarrassed about tocophobia. Sure. If you have tocophobia, I don't think there's a reason to feel embarrassed about it. I don't. I don't feel embarrassed about having male paternal tocophobia or male tocophobia. And you shouldn't have to experience these feelings alone. Most men experience these feelings alone. There is a moment in life where men talk about pregnancy and they'll say, no, I don't want that when they're young. But as soon as you get somebody pregnant, all those things go away, right? And in fact, then you start to face these things by yourself. I, for one, always discuss the fear of getting somebody pregnant. And I don't remember a situation where a single man disagreed with my assessment. In fact, many men shared my sentiment. Initially, maybe they were just agreeing to be agreeable. But once they had gotten a counterpart inseminated and pregnant, they soon became proud fathers to be. Now, I don't know which one was the pretense. Were you pretending to not want to have kids, or are you pretending to be happy now that you did have kids? But the the change comes in the fact that they do have kids. So before they have kids, they don't want nothing to do with kids. And as soon as somebody gets pregnant, they couldn't wait to be fathers. Right? And they never go back to that initial statement. So maybe having kids does change you, or maybe they're just lying. It's possible it's both. Right? It's possible it's both. It says talking to your healthcare provider can be one of the first steps towards getting relief. Treatment can make being pregnant and planning for childbirth less stressful. I don't know how true that is. But, from, I think this is purely from a counterpart's point of view, a woman's point of view. I really don't know what could make childbirth less stressful. Is that even possible? What are tocophobia symptoms? Tocophobia affects your thoughts and behaviors. Yes, it does, right? Your thoughts will always affect your behavior. Many people with tocophobia suffer from depression. They are also likely to experience negative outcomes. That's interesting. That's interesting. I don't think that it brought me depression. Perhaps it did in certain ways. But I think I always gravitated towards being a stable person anyway. But I did feel limited in terms of options, right? In terms of like, who do I really want to inseminate? And the answer is no one, right? So, if the answer is you don't want to inseminate anyone, then you're not going to be likely to want to go socialize and that thing, right? Would that bring depression? I don't know. Really, I don't know. I'm a bachelor, so even after the vasectomy, I just like to be by myself anyway. Yes, I like to be with people, but not for too long. So I don't know if this will induce depression, right? Negative outcomes. Yes. Well, if you're scared of getting somebody pregnant, you get somebody pregnant. I would assume that was a negative outcome, but for me, I got a positive outcome. I froze my sperm and got a vasectomy, and I think it all worked out in the end. Because here I am with you discussing vasectomies on a daily, healthy basis. Thoughts and behaviors. Fear of pregnancy may cause you to, number one, avoid sexual intercourse. This was me. I avoided intimacy completely in certain cases, right? And in certain cases, I would be very cautious about who I would be intimate with. Like there were things like I wouldn't know, like body count and that kind of thing. But you know, ovulation, I might wanna know about that. So I might not be interested in body count, but I might be interested in your ovulation, right? So I don't want to take any chances, because you know you can't get body count pregnant, but ovulation that'll absolutely affect you. But now that I'm a vasectomite, I could care less. Really, I could care less about your circumstances, you know. But yeah, yeah, if you're scared of having children, you might want to avoid that intercourse. Remember, there are only three types of contraception for men. There is the avoidance, right, which is just not doing it at all. There are condoms, right, which most people only use during affairs, right, and infidelity. And then there is the ultimate vasectomy, right? And here we preach freezing your sperm, get a vasectomy, right? We promote that, we motivate that. That way, if you still want to have kids, you might. Number two is not feel emotionally connected to the developing fetus. That's tragic, but if you weren't excited about the pregnancy, I don't see how you would, build an emotional connection with a developing fetus, if that's even possible. But I think this is directed more towards women than men, because men, we don't really engage with the fetus in any possible way, we only meet the child when they arrive on earth. Number three, not feel excited about pregnancy. Yes. Especially, this is worse if you're already with someone that's pregnant. But if you have tocophobia, paternal tocophobia, you're not going to be excited about any pregnancy, right? Even just the word pregnancy will induce problems. You don't want your counterpart coming home one day and start talking about how her niece is pregnant and how her aunt is pregnant and how all her friends are pregnant, because that means she wants to get pregnant. Number four, try not to hide the fact that you're pregnant. So, you know, I suppose this is also for women, or even men can do this. When your counterpart is pregnant, you might want to hide that information from people that are close to you until you know the situation, or until it's unavoidable anymore. You know, I first would have associated this behavior with the counterpart, because they're the ones that can actually pull this off in a meaningful way. But the knee benders also might, they might want to keep the fact that they have kids away from you, so they can like relate to you, right? To be able to bond with the boys, that kind of thing. Um, but also they may want to keep it away from like their family until they have, I don't know, maybe a clear story to tell, something to that effect. Who can say, right? But yep, you're hiding things from your family now. And number five, feel disconnected from your partner or loved ones. If somebody gets pregnant and one of you didn't want the pregnancy, so if the counterpart didn't want the pregnancy but she's pregnant and you did, or it's the opposite, you didn't want the pregnancy and she did, that's gonna cause a disconnection, and you're not going to be able to close that gap very quickly. So that's why a lot of guys, they'll be like excited about it, because they sort of want to match her feelings. So if she's excited, I want to be excited too. That's the best outcome. You don't want to be upset, because then she's going to be upset, and then now she gets the chance to be excited while you get to be upset. So, or while you have to be upset. So, your best outcome is probably just going to be excited about it. Just lie. That's really what you have no choice in doing. Because if you're honest about it and say you don't want the kid, that's a whole nother set of problems. Really, that's a whole nother set of problems. But you can expect that if your sentiment is not the same about this child, that you can expect a disconnection and a rift. It says here, while often associated with women, right? This is the male part, right? Tocophobia, the fear of pregnancy and childbirth, can also affect men. Men experience tocophobia, sometimes referred to as paternal tocophobia, may have intense fears about the health and safety of their partner and child, particularly during labor and delivery. So, this affects both men who have not had a counterpart that's pregnant and men that have had a counterpart that is pregnant. For the men who don't have a counterpart that's pregnant, your fear is that you don't want to get her pregnant. But for the men who do have a counterpart that is pregnant, part of that fear might be their safety. So if there's like a complication in the pregnancy, you may fear that something can happen during the pregnancy, something can happen during the labor, and during the delivery, right? That is a legitimate fear for your family. This fear can impact their ability to prepare for fatherhood and may lead to significant anxiety and stress. I suppose. I suppose. It's very difficult for me to discuss some of these issues from the perspective of a bachelor purely, right? So, in truth, this has always been the story of the bachelor life. What you do is you'll have like a ton of information about men, and that information will quickly switch to married men, right? They won't just focus on single men and bachelors. And the truth of that is because there's just so many benders. Like 99% by the time you're 60, you're all benders, right? You would have all bent that knee. So it's understandable, right? So to a certain extent, I can give a perspective on the male point of view, but really there are certain things about marriage and kids that I have no idea about. I would have never guessed that being afraid of your spouse's labor can affect the way that you prepare for fatherhood. But I suppose I could have surmised that from observation. But in truth, this is not something that many men talk about. The fear, the fears associated with having kids, right? And the seriousness of it. And when bachelors talk about it, it's always a big no, right? No, I don't want any kids. But really, that type of fear can be debilitating, I imagine. Our next points are key aspects of tocophobia in men. Number one is the fear of the unknown, right? So these are aspects of tocophobia in men. Men may fear the unpredictable nature of childbirth and the potential for complications and negative outcomes. This is exactly what I've been talking about, right? The unpredictable nature and the potential for complications or negative outcomes. Negative outcomes are always a guarantee. It's the complications that really are going to drag you down. I mean, I cannot even imagine the type of complications that come with childbirth and child raising, right? Just every day a different problem. And you're going to have to deal with that. And that for me is just not happening. It's not a risk that I'm willing to take. I'd much rather risk freezing my sperm and getting a vasectomy than risk, just performing badly as a father, which I'm pretty sure I would. I don't think I'd make a good father, right? And there's some guys who think they're going to be great fathers, and I'm happy for you. I really am. But I'm just being honest here and saying that I don't think I could pull this off. Not only that, I just don't have the desire for it. It's one thing to have the desire when it's difficult. Then you can always lean on that desire. Like, hey, this is what I wanted. This is what comes with that. Sometimes this is in the territory. When you don't want it at all, even the slightest inconvenience can become a major problem. Number two, concerns of partners' well being. So, we just discussed this a moment ago. A common fear among men with tocophobia is the potential harm or suffering or their partner might experience during labor, right? So that probably means you're going to pay more. If you have concerns and you like to alleviate medical concerns, that usually means a procedure, and that procedure usually means paying money. Fear for medical interventions. Some men worry about the need for medical interventions like C sections and the potential impact on both their partner and their child. A C section is something that has never ever crossed my mind. While I'm aware of C sections, I don't really dwell on the causes and the effects of it. Again, I'm a vasectomite and a lifelong bachelor. I don't mean to imply that these things are not legitimate and valued. Remember, 99% of the population of the world is going to end up having kids anyway, and 99% is getting married, and about 98 is going to have children, right? So I understand that these things are big social issues and, quite frankly, very important for most people, for all people. It's just I'm a little bit outside of that. So, a C section really never ever crossed my mind. I wouldn't even know under what circumstances, to be really honest with you, a person receives a C section. But I do know that they are very serious and need to be taken with the utmost seriousness, right? I think it's a full on medical procedure. It's not like what we do in terms of vasectomy, where you're in and out in 30 minutes to an hour. I think a C section is something far more complicated because it involves the survival of two people simultaneously. So I can imagine why this can be, anxiety inducing for a lot of men. Anxiety about parental capabilities. Men may fear not being able to adequately care for their child or fulfill their role as a father. This is me. This is me right here. I am convinced that I would not be a great father. And if I was a good father, I'm also convinced that I wouldn't enjoy the process because of how happy and grateful I am as a bachelor, and how happy and grateful I am to have my vasectomy and to have my sperm frozen stiff. When I say stiff, I mean frozen stiff, because I know I wouldn't be able to pull this off. There's so many guys who believe they're gonna do this and do it well. And I'm very happy for those too. For you to have that type of clarity must be very, very inspirational to you. But for me, I have a different type of clarity. I don't think I could pull that off. I never thought I could pull this off. There's never been a day in my life where I thought, man, I'm going to make a great father to a little girl. Or I'm going to teach my values to my son so he can carry my name forward. Never crossed my mind. What I thought was, man, I'm going to mess this up. I'm really gonna mess this up, and it's gonna be bad. That's why I got that vasectomy. And not a shadow of doubt in my mind that getting a vasectomy was the best thing for me, right? Now, I know it won't be for everyone, but there are some of you out there who truly know. Man. You just know in your heart this is not for you. And if you're one of those men, I want you to know I'm with you. Go get your vasectomy. Go get a vasectomy. Freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy before you have to find out that you do not have the ability to adequately care for a child, nor to fulfill your role as a father. Oh no, that's not me. I have no capacity to fill a role as a father. Number 5 is impact on daily life. Tocophobia can Tocophobia can lead to severe anxiety, feelings of helplessness, and difficulty coping with the anticipation of fatherhood. I can imagine once somebody is pregnant, right? In this situation, how you could be feeling anxious or helpless, having difficulty to cope with the anticipation of fatherhood, knowing knowing that you have no choice but to try and pull this off. Or I can only imagine what you're going through. If you have a counterpart that's pregnant right now, I can only imagine the thoughts that are flying around in your mind and all the problems that you're going to face when they become a teenager. And don't let them somebody put drugs in their hands. I hope nobody puts drugs in your kids' hands. You know, the green flower one? Mm-mm-mm. That's just the start of it. You know, I just don't know how you can overcome the anxiety, the helplessness, the anticipation. Because you're expecting to be good at this. Man, I don't know. I don't know. It's one. So if you're good at it, what is the counterpart? Does that mean that she's not a good mother? If you're a good father, I suppose you can have a good mother and have a good father at the same time. It'll be a hell of a competition. But, I don't know. I really don't know. Fatherhood is just something that I'm really not interested in. And I know a lot of men are, you know, but I know a lot of men aren't too. Research on male tocophobia. Studies have shown that a significant percentage of men experience some level of fear related to childbirth, with some studies indicating that 13% of expectant fathers report experiencing tocophobia. I honestly think it's much higher than that. I think it could go up to even 40%, right? But my statistics are not based on any sound research, just life experience, like just knowing men. I would say that almost 100% of men that I've asked if they want to be fathers almost say no inevitably at some point. So they may agree maybe, a few times, but it's rare where I've heard somebody say, hey, my first ambition is to be a father. It says while the Wijma or Wima, I'm not sure how you pronounce that word, while the Wijma Delivery Expectancy Experience Questionnaire, WDEQ, is commonly used to assess fear of childbirth in women, researchers have adapted it to developed specific scales like the Father's Fear of Childbirth Scale, FFCS, to evaluate tocophobia in men. Okay, so now that I think about it, I can actually see how more women would report a fear of childbirth. Not a fear of having a child, but a fear of childbirth as a concern. So I can see why, if they asked you, do you have a fear of childbirth? That could bring the number all the way down to 13%. Like as a man, I have no fear of childbirth. I just have a fear of what comes with the childbirth. Says number 3, research suggests that men's fear of childbirth may be linked to factors like anxiety, depression, and previous traumatic experiences, according to a review from Brieflands. Yes, I can see why expecting a child can make you anxious and depressed. As a lifelong bachelor, I can see why that would make me depressed. From previous traumatic experience, my depression and anxiety would come from wonderful experiences, because I love being a bachelor. I'm very happy as a bachelor, and having to lose that would make me very sad. So I can see how that could be a traumatic experience, losing my bachelorhood, losing my liberty, my freedom of movement, my self-determination. Yeah, that would be a problem. That would be an absolutely traumatic experience. Oh, can you imagine coming on here and saying, guys, I'm done being the ancient one. I no longer want to be the Bachelor Supreme. I am bending the knee. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh, it would be traumatic for me. Really, I don't know how I would process that. The Bachelor Supreme does not bend the knee. The Bachelor Supreme does not bend the knee. Next up, treatment and support. So, number 1, psychotherapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and other forms of talk therapy can help men address their fear and develop coping mechanisms, according to newsmedical.net. I disagree. Talking talking is not going to make the fear of being a father gonna go away, right? Maybe they can try and get you prepared mentally, emotionally, but I don't think it's going to make those worries go away. Your head is going to be spinning with possibilities, scenarios, what ifs, right? What if this happens? What if he says this? What if he does that? What if he does this to another person? I don't know. I don't know, but this is something that they can offer, which is why I said earlier on that there's really no cure. Talking, I don't know if there's a cure. They say treatment. Treatment and support is not the same thing as a cure. A cure is a permanent solution. Treatment and support is an indication that this is an ongoing problem with really no solution. They can just tell you to hold on and be strong. That's what they're going to tell you, to hold on and be strong. That's not a solution. Freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. That is a solution. Support groups, connecting with other men experiencing similar fears, can provide a sense of validation and reduce feelings of isolation. This is an indication of a collective failure. Connecting with other men who have the same problem and no solution is an indication of a larger collective failure. Here, all of you are not wanting to have kids, fearful that you're going to have kids. The thing that you fear is the thing that you don't want, right? So nobody fears being a millionaire because that's what you want. Everybody fears extreme poverty because that's what you don't want. So the fact that you and a group of other men have a fear of this thing is an indication that this is real. 13% of you have this fear is an indication that it's real. And if 13% of us cannot find a solution to this problem, it's an indication of failure on our behalf. I mean, 13% of men in the world, surely you'll be able to think up some kind of plan. I have one. Freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. There's a whole group of you coming together here, scared to face this thing alone. That means you don't want to be a dad. If you have a fear of something and there's a group of you that come together to talk about your fear, not to celebrate, that's an indication that you don't want something, right? That is an adverse reaction to something. That's an indication that this is something that you want to either fight or run away from. Open communication, there we go. Talking to your partner, family, or healthcare professional about their fear can be helpful. I don't understand how that's going to be helpful. This is all they're suggesting here. You talk to a therapist, you talk to a group, you talk to your partner, talk to your family, talk to your healthcare professional. So all you're going to do all day long is just go around talking about your fear. I'm scared of having kids, and not do anything about it. That's unacceptable to me, especially since we have a solution for this mental phobia, for this mental condition. And that solution is to freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. Finally, it says education and preparation. I support education and preparation. Learning more about childbirth is going to blow your mind. When you find out, when you see those videos and see what's going on in those childbirth videos, it is going to blow your mind. I don't want no parts of that childbirth situation. After seeing those videos and understanding for myself, I don't want nothing to do with it. Learning more about childbirth and the support systems available can help alleviate some of the anxiety associated with the unknown. Oh no. All they're going to do is tell you all the things that you can expect to go wrong. So effectively, even if the childbirth happens well and there's no complications, what they're going to tell you is all the responsibilities and things that you have to do after the child is born. And immediately you're going to start to realize that you don't have the monies for this. Not only do you not have the monies for it now, you spend that money on the childbirth. You just spent almost $18,000 to $20,000, which is standard on childbirth. And don't let it be twins. That's gonna blow you all the way up to $35,000 for those twins. Yeah, twins are that expensive. Don't have twins, right? So the education that you have, the education that I received on legal matrimony, the dark dimension, having kids, all that kind of thing, all the information that I received dissuaded me from participating. I saw that and I thought, no way, I don't want any parts of this, right? But some men, they see all that, and then they want to go in and see if they can survive. And you're not gonna survive, man. It's gonna ruin your life. This is why right here at the bottom I put my own solution, my cure, the real cure for paternal tocophobia. The real cure for paternal tocophobia is to freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. There's a question mark there because that's the thing that I want you to think about and consider on our way out. Right? This is the end of the video, and I thought this was very insightful information. Right? I do know that there are a lot of men that are scared of having kids and experience to some extent the fear of childbirth. For the reasons that we're given here today, I think it is a legitimate fear. There is a source that describes it as irrational, but I dismiss that source. I thought, it's good information, but I think the word irrational is a little bit on the nose. It's very disparaging, and I think that having paternal tocophobia is a legitimate fear. The fear of having kids is a legitimate fear. But fortunately, we have a solution to that. And that solution is for you to freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. And this is the core message of this platform, and something that you're going to hear every day. It's really incumbent on us to keep the conversation about vasectomies healthy, productive, and regular. Right? The law is on our side. Vasectomies are perfectly legal, but it's the cultural norms that we have to change. Right? So we're changing the culture. Unfortunately, you have to understand when it comes to changing culture, you're really not talking to anybody from the past. So anybody above the age of, say, 40, 30 even, this message might be past your time. You may already have kids. But it's really the young people who are going to determine the culture of the future moving forward. And it's these people that need the message the most, because it's your life that, quite frankly, the vasectomy will affect the most. Right? And if you still want to have kids, you can still freeze your sperm before you get that vasectomy. Right? And therefore, you don't have to take chances and take any risks. But this is the end of the video. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it as always. And I'd like to keep our message strong and true. Freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy, protect your seed, protect your solitude, remain a bachelor for life. And I want you to know that if you are suffering from male tocophobia, we do have a cure for it. It is to freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. And if you have a genuine fear of having kids, I want you to know that that is a legitimate fear. And that is something that you need to take very seriously and use the cure. Try the cure that we provide and see if that doesn't make a difference. It cured me. It cured me. As soon as I got that vasectomy, I never feared having a child ever again. It freed me. It is the path to salvation, and you can have it too. I am the Ancient One. I am the Bachelor Supreme. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it, and I always will. And I want to wish you a lovely day.